What if success is actually making you miserable? After years of hard work, the dream job arrives. The ideal apartment becomes reality. The social media profile looks picture perfect. Yet as congratulatory messages pour in, a lingering question remains. Why does this feel so hollow? This emptiness isn't a personal failing. It's the shadow that follows achievement, and understanding it might be the most important work successful people never do. This paradox represents one of the most confounding psychological mysteries of our achievement-oriented culture. Why the summit of success so often reveals a barren emotional landscape. We see it in the tech CEO who builds a billion-dollar company but struggles with profound depression. The celebrated artist who feels like a fraud despite critical acclaim. The surgeon who saves lives daily yet battles crippling anxiety about their own worth. The external trappings of achievement, it seems, provide no guarantee of internal peace. This emptiness isn't a sign of personal failure, but rather an invitation to a deeper understanding of the self. Carl Jung, the pioneering Swiss psychiatrist, offered a compelling framework through his concept of the shadow, those disowned parts of ourselves that don't fit our conscious self-image. For high achievers, this shadow often contains everything that doesn't serve the relentless pursuit of success, and its neglect may be the very source of the emptiness that no achievement can fill. This revelation suggests that the crisis of success actually represents an opportunity for genuine wholeness, beyond the trophies, titles, and external validation that were never designed to provide lasting fulfillment. This phenomenon reflects a fundamental misunderstanding about achievement that permeates our culture. Society has constructed a remarkably narrow definition of success, one measured primarily through visible metrics. Financial wealth, professional status, public recognition, and material possessions. These external markers function as a scorecard, allowing us to rank ourselves against others and track our progress on what we believe is the path to fulfillment. The straight A student becomes the high-performing professional and becomes the industry leader, following a trajectory that promises satisfaction at the end of each accomplishment. The human brain reinforces this pursuit through powerful neurochemical rewards. Each achievement triggers a dopamine release, creating a momentary sense of pleasure and satisfaction. Research from neuroscientists at Stanford University demonstrates how this reward circuitry activates when we receive recognition, creating what researchers call social reward, the neurochemical equivalent of the rush from food or other primary rewards. The promotion, the award, the public praise, each serves as a hit that temporarily alleviates the anxiety about our worth and place in the world. Over time, however, something subtle yet profound happens. Achievement transforms from an experience into an identity. The high-performing individual no longer sees success as something they do, but as who they are. I am a successful person becomes the core of their self-concept, creating a dangerous conditional relationship with the self. I am worthy because I achieve. This fundamental shift places the source of self-worth outside the self, rendering the individual perpetually dependent on external validation to maintain their sense of identity and value. The phenomenon psychologists call the hedonic treadmill compounds this problem. With each new achievement, our baseline for satisfaction rises, requiring ever greater accomplishments to produce the same emotional payoff. The initial excitement of making partner at the law firm, landing the executive role, or exceeding 7 figures in annual income quickly normalizes, becoming the new baseline rather than a source of ongoing fulfillment. Like a tolerance to a drug, yesterday's extraordinary achievement becomes today's minimum expectation. The brain's reward system isn't designed for sustained satisfaction from static achievements. Neuroscience research published in the Journal of Neuroscience reveals that the dopamine system responds primarily to novelty and unexpected rewards, not to consistent states, even consistently successful ones. The brain that evolved to motivate our ancestors to continue hunting after a successful kill now propels us toward endless achievement without satisfaction. The senior executive staring at her award isn't experiencing a personal failing. She's encountering the limitations of a reward system that evolved for survival, not fulfillment. This anatomy of achievement reveals why the pursuit alone cannot provide lasting satisfaction. When external metrics become the primary measure of our worth, we create a self that exists primarily for others' evaluation. A self that can display the markers of success, but cannot experience the internal sense of meaning that transcends those markers. And in this gap between external validation and internal experience, we find the first clues to understanding the emptiness that so often shadows success. The gap between external achievement and internal fulfillment leads us directly to Carl Jung's concept of the shadow. For Jung, the shadow comprises all aspects of ourselves that don't align with our conscious self-image. The qualities, desires, and emotions we've learned to suppress or deny. This shadow forms early in life as we discover which parts of ourselves gain approval and which parts face rejection. We learn to emphasize the former while relegating the latter to the shadow, not eliminated but hidden from conscious awareness. For high achievers, this psychological sorting begins particularly early and operates with unusual intensity. The child who receives praise and recognition for achievements, good grades, athletic trophies, artistic talents, quickly learns which aspects of self are valued. The driven, perfectionistic, and productive parts receive reinforcement, while aspects that don't serve achievement face subtle or explicit disapproval. The message internalizes: what produces results matters, what doesn't is expendable. Over time, this selective reinforcement creates what Jung called the persona, the socially acceptable mask we present to the world. For the high achiever, this becomes the success persona: confident, competent, in control, and perpetually productive. This persona isn't fabricated in bad faith. It simply represents the aspects of the self that have been deemed valuable through consistent external validation. The success persona becomes the primary vehicle through which the high achiever engages with the world. In this dynamic, a wide range of human experiences gets consigned to the shadow. Vulnerability, the admission of uncertainty, fear, or limitation, disappears because it contradicts the image of unwavering competence. The need for rest and reflection gets pushed aside as inefficient. Creative play without purpose becomes frivolous. Emotional dependencies are viewed as weaknesses. Any quality that might interfere with the relentless forward motion of achievement gets hidden away, not just from others, but from conscious awareness. The shadow, however, doesn't disappear through neglect. It intensifies. Jung observed that the energy invested in repressing disowned aspects of the self creates a psychological tension that grows over time. The more completely the high achiever identifies with their success persona, the more power their shadow gains in the unconscious. The executive who never acknowledges vulnerability may find anxiety erupting in panic attacks. The perfectionist who never allows for limitations might experience mysterious physical symptoms. The relentlessly self-sufficient leader might develop inexplicable dependency in personal relationships. What makes this dynamic particularly challenging for high achievers is that their exceptional competence in maintaining their persona often extends to keeping their shadow hidden as well. They become experts at appearing whole while feeling fragmented, at projecting confidence while harboring doubt, at displaying strength while experiencing vulnerability. The success persona becomes both their greatest asset and their most constricting limitation, allowing them to achieve external validation while simultaneously preventing the integration that would bring internal peace. The disconnection between the success persona and the shadow creates the distinctive emptiness that haunts high achievers. This emptiness isn't mere dissatisfaction. It's the psychological consequence of living a partially expressed life. When significant aspects of your humanity remain in the shadow, no amount of external achievement can compensate for this internal fragmentation. The success that should feel fulfilling instead feels hollow, precisely because the self-experiencing that success is incomplete. Achievement-based identity creates a particularly vulnerable form of self-worth. When your value depends on continuous performance and external validation, you must perpetually prove your worth rather than inherently possess it. Many accomplished professionals never feel secure in their value as a person. Each success buys another day of worth, but the credit never lasts. One mistake, one failure, and they fear being exposed as worthless. This conditional relationship with the self maintains a constant low-grade anxiety, the awareness that your worth requires endless evidence. This anxiety often manifests as imposter syndrome, the persistent fear of being found out, as inadequate despite evidence of competence. Research published in the International Journal of Behavioral Science suggests that approximately 70% of people experience imposter feelings at some point in their careers, with particularly high rates among high achievers. This phenomenon represents a shadow manifestation. The conscious mind may recognize achievements, but the disowned insecurities in the shadow know that the success persona isn't the whole story. The fear of exposure reflects the psyche's awareness of its own divided state. Success itself often functions as a sophisticated defense mechanism against deeper fears. Behind the drive for achievement frequently lies the dread of inadequacy, insignificance, rejection, or powerlessness. The shadow contains not just suppressed qualities, but also wounds and vulnerabilities, too painful to acknowledge. Achievement becomes the perfect distraction from these deeper issues, providing constant external evidence to counter internal doubts. As psychiatrist Carl Jung himself noted, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. The psychological cost of this division appears in research consistently showing elevated rates of depression, anxiety, and substance abuse among high achievers in various fields. A study of Yale law students found that over 70% reported significant mental health challenges during their education. Research on physicians shows they experience depression at rates significantly higher than the general population. Among entrepreneurs, anxiety disorders are disproportionately common. These statistics aren't coincidental. They reflect the psychological strain of maintaining a divided self. The emptiness that results isn't a sign of failure or ingratitude. It's the psyche's recognition that external success cannot resolve internal division. No promotion, award, or achievement can integrate the shadow. In fact, each new success can deepen the division by further reinforcing the success persona at the expense of the complete self. The high achiever's emptiness isn't a problem to overcome through greater achievement. It's an invitation to a different kind of work altogether, the work of reclaiming the shadow and becoming whole. The journey beyond achievement-induced emptiness begins with Jung's concept of individuation, the process of integrating the divided aspects of the psyche into a more cohesive whole. Individuation represents the ultimate developmental task, more significant than any external achievement. It requires turning toward, rather than away from the shadow, engaging with precisely those aspects of the self that achievement culture teaches us to reject or ignore. Shadow integration doesn't mean abandoning achievement or success. Rather, it involves expanding beyond the success persona to include the full range of human experience. The high achiever who integrates their shadow doesn't become less capable. They become more authentic, drawing from a fuller spectrum of their humanity. They move from success as compensation to success as expression, from achievement to prove worth to achievement as one manifestation of an inherently worthy self. The first step in this integration involves conscious examination of what's been rejected. For most high achievers, this means acknowledging qualities that don't serve the performance ideal: vulnerability, uncertainty, the need for rest, emotions that signal limitation. Many executives begin by simply noting when they reflexively dismiss their own feelings, realizing they automatically categorize emotions as weaknesses. Anger is deemed unprofessional, sadness self-indulgent, fear unacceptable. They've been treating normal human responses as failures. This awareness creates the possibility of reclaiming these experiences rather than reflexively suppressing them. Questioning achievement motivations often reveals shadow material driving success. When high achievers honestly examine why they push so relentlessly, they frequently discover fears and wounds beneath the ambition. Many find childhood experiences of invisibility behind their drive for recognition, pursuing success not for its own sake, but as an escape from insignificance. This insight doesn't invalidate the achievement, but it contextualizes it, revealing how success has functioned as both accomplishment and defense mechanism. The integration process requires embracing aspects of self that don't produce, qualities valuable for being rather than doing, playfulness without purpose, rest without justification, creativity without deadlines. These experiences allow access to parts of the self that achievement metrics can't measure. Thomas, a tech entrepreneur, established a weekly purposeless day where productivity was explicitly not the goal. It felt uncomfortable at first, almost irresponsible, but I gradually rediscovered parts of myself that had nothing to do with my company or its success. Finding identity beyond achievement represents perhaps the most challenging aspect of shadow integration for high performers. When I am what I accomplish has been the core operating principle, discovering an inherent worth independent of external validation requires a profound psychological shift. This transition often involves grieving the conditional love that established achievement as the basis for worth, and developing compassion for the self that believed its value depended on performance. The integration process doesn't aim for perfection. In fact, it explicitly embraces imperfection as part of authentic humanity. Jung observed that wholeness, not perfection, represents the goal of psychological development. The integrated high achiever doesn't eliminate flaws or banish uncertainty. They incorporate these aspects into a more complete self-understanding. This integration creates resilience precisely because worth no longer depends exclusively on performance. Failure becomes an event rather than an identity. Public figures who've discussed their journeys through this process offer compelling examples of shadow integration. Novelist Elizabeth Gilbert described her post-Eat, Pray, Love emptiness as the great psychological turning point of my life, leading her to discover identity beyond success. Former surgeon Atul Gawande has written eloquently about embracing fallibility in a profession that demands perfection. NBA coach Phil Jackson incorporated Jungian concepts directly into his coaching philosophy, helping elite athletes develop beyond their performance identities. These examples demonstrate that shadow integration doesn't diminish achievement. It transforms its meaning and impact. The integration process replaces emptiness, not with perpetual fulfillment, but with authentic wholeness that encompasses the full range of human experience. The high achiever who integrates their shadow may still experience disappointment, uncertainty, and limitation, but they experience these as aspects of a complete life, rather than threats to a fragile identity. This integration doesn't eliminate striving, but it changes its character from desperate proving to creative expression of genuine capacities and values. Success takes on new dimensions when viewed through the lens of shadow integration. No longer confined to external achievements and validation, it expands to embrace the full spectrum of human experience. This more comprehensive definition values not just what we accomplish, but how we live. Our capacity for authenticity, connection, and engagement with both light and shadow aspects of ourselves. The high achiever who undertakes this integration discovers that true success encompasses both external achievement and internal coherence. The promotion alongside the ability to recognize when ambition serves purpose rather than fear. The completed project and the capacity to rest without justification. Public recognition while maintaining worth that doesn't depend on others' validation. This redefined success isn't diminished. It's expanded beyond the constraints of the success persona to include the gifts that emerge from the reclaimed shadow. The emptiness that so often accompanies achievement isn't an inevitable cost of success. It's a signpost pointing toward integration. The sense of hollowness amid accomplishment represents the psyche's recognition that parts of the self remain unexpressed and unacknowledged. Rather than seeing this emptiness as failure, we can recognize it as an invitation to a more complete experience of both success and selfhood. The shadow of success contains not just what we've rejected, but also the potential for a more authentic relationship with achievement itself. What might your redefined success look like if it emerged from wholeness rather than division? How might your achievements express rather than prove your worth? What aspects of yourself have been waiting in the shadow of your success, ready to contribute to a more complete expression of who you are? The answers to these questions won't diminish your capacity for achievement. They'll transform achievement from a compensation for inadequacy into an authentic expression of your unique and inherently valuable humanity. Now it's your turn. Take a moment to reflect on what lies in your shadow. What talents, interests, or qualities have you set aside in pursuit of success? Share your insights in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Like this video to help extend this message to others silently struggling with the same emptiness amid their achievements.